And tonight, it is my absolute honor to have one of these men here. One who, during almost a full year of horror upon horror at the hands of his captors in Vietnam, man who persevered and fought with every ounce of his soul to survive against the worst possible conditions imaginable. A man that not only learned the code of conduct, but lived it. Retired Army Colonel William Bill Reeder. Sir, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Jocko. It's my honor indeed to be here and participate in this podcast as well. Thank you.
I want to just, before we jump into the book, if you could just talk a little bit about you growing up, what you did, what you were like, where you were.
Oh, boy. Okay. I didn't know this was coming. I was essentially a kid off the streets of Los Angeles. I was born in Glendale, grew up for a time in the San Fernando Valley, which is in the opening prologue to the book. I had a tough childhood, I guess I would say. Got into some trouble as a young guy. Sports helped me at least survive to graduate from high school. Left college, and I went off to college at University of Idaho to study forestry. Left college in less than esteemed academic terms after only one year. Worked for a time I worked all the time as a kid with various small jobs, newspaper routes, and selling magazines to door to door. Then did some construction work in my early teens, roofing work. After I left college, I worked cattle ranches for a while. Worked for the U.S. Forest Service for a time, ultimately as a firefighter. I got laid off at the end of fire season, went back home to Los Angeles and found a job with Southern California Edison in Santa Monica, climbing power lines as an apprentice lineman, and did that until the outbreak of the Vietnam War, and then found my real niche in life when I walked into the Army recruiter in Santa Monica, California, and signed on the dotted line.
What year was that?
1965. So, the Tonkin Gulf incident occurred. That's where the U.S. destroyers were attacked in 1964. We put Marines ashore in Da Nang in March of 1965. That's when I started talking to recruiters. First, I was going in the Marine Corps, but somehow ended up enlisting in the Army in August of 1965.
And then what was the transition to becoming a pilot?
Yeah, well, so I started out enlisted, went to basic training and advanced individual training, AIT. I was a cannoneer, member of a cannon crew and an artillery unit, and then applied for officer candidate school. And they took those with the highest test scores. You had to pass a series of interviews, but they were looking for officers then, especially artillery lieutenants. And so I went to artillery officer candidate school, 6 months of training with some degree of harassment, and then got commissioned in August of 1966 as a second lieutenant in artillery.
And then how long did you do artillery for before you became a pilot?
Yeah, that was about a year. I didn't think I was going to be able to fly, and that's really why I didn't go in the Marine Corps. I wanted to be a pilot. There were only 2 services you could fly without a college degree, so this college dropout had hopes in either the Marine Corps or the Army. When I went and saw the Marine recruiter, he gave me a battery of tests. And he said, yeah, you qualify for flight, and we can guarantee you flight training. I said, okay, so what do I have to do? He says, you just go in. As long as you pass a flight physical, you're good to go. So I could sense there was something afoot here. So before I went in, I went to a FAA flight surgeon in Santa Monica and said, give me the same flight physical the military does and tell me if I could pass it. So he gave me the physical and said, no, you wouldn't pass it. He said, your right eye is about 20/25 to 20/30. You have an astigmatism. They require perfect 20/20 vision. You couldn't pass the flight physical. So I wrote off the Marine Corps. I wasn't going to do that, and I went into the Army instead, thinking I would never fly. After I went to officer candidate school, I got commissioned. I was working in an artillery assignment at Fort Carson, Colorado. And went in for an annual physical, and when I got the physical, it came back 20/20 both eyes. So I was in like Flynn, took that down to the flight surgeon, put my application in, and went off to flight school.
Awesome.